Hey friends, how are you guys? It is our Sunday night Money Madness talk, and we are going to be checking in. Talking about FSAs and HSAs. Sorry, I was at the pool and did not realize I have raccoon eyes. Okay, so we are going to be talking about the difference between an HSA and an FSA and why this could benefit your family. Okay, so these are spending accounts. In other words, an HSA is a health savings account, a FSA is a flexible spending account. They are different, but both are used for like medical expenses. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. I have some notes over here I'm going to be just talking with you about and why this could benefit your family. So let me give you an example. Through my employer, these are employer-based programs. My mom had an HSA, I have an FSA, so they're a little bit different. They're basically different in the way that HSAs are for people who have a high deductible, where an FSA can be anybody with any amount of deductible for their health insurance. So because my mom was a nurse in a nursing home where the deductible was like, I think $5,000 a year, they provided them with an HSA, which is a health savings account. So she could have money taken off of her paycheck pre-tax, placed in her HSA, just like I had money taken off pre-tax and placed in my FSA or my flexible spending account pre-tax, and the purpose of that is for solely for medical expenses. Now, this is where you need to take into consideration, number one, how much do you generally have in medical expenses every year? Number two, how large is your deductible? And number three, how many people are in your family? So for somebody like me who was a single mom with 3 boys, this was a no-brainer. Now I'm remarried, and so it's a little different, but I still think it's worthwhile to do the FSA, definitely, because I think I have about a $2,500 limit. Each of them are somewhat different. The max contribution for 2018, now this data is a little old, an HSA was $3,450 and an FSA was $2,650. So you could take different amounts off, and for depending on what type of account you had. Now let's talk about my example a little bit. So I pay for contacts every year and my eye exam. You have to, in the state of Pennsylvania, you have to have an eye exam every year and be fitted for contacts. Right there, boom, is like, for the exam alone is like $120, and the contact fitting. And then my contacts, I think, are like between $400 and $600 every year. Okay. So right away, why would I not contribute to an FSA every month? Just let it go in there every month, and then I submit receipts for my medical expenses. And so I just got the bill from my eye doctor. I think it was like $800 and some dollars. So all I have to do is pay up front, either with a credit card or with cash, obviously, and then I just submit that receipt to my employer, and then they cut me a check usually around the middle of the next month. Okay, and then I just either pay that credit off or pay the person back, or you know what I mean, put it back in my budget. So the point of this is a very wise decision if you know you're going to have at least a couple hundred, I would say, a year of medical expenses. Now, an HSA is even more flexible than an FSA in what you can deduct for. So let's say, for example, with mine are mostly prescriptions, doctor visits, anything that has to do with like my contacts, if it was a hearing aid, that would all count. But an HSA is even more flexible. An HSA are things like, my mom had an HSA and she could write off like saline solution, anything remotely. She just had to keep a track of her receipts. And then at the end of the year, she could, as long as she kept proof of what those expenses were for, she had her own checkbook for that account. So she could literally write, it was her own savings account. Where with my FSA, I have to submit receipts and get reimbursed. Her HSA was a health savings account with a local bank that she would then write checks right out of that account, just like it was another checking account, only it was contributed to by her employer, but she had access to it to write these checks, but she just had to keep receipts to prove at tax time that they were medical expenses. But there's a lot more flexibility there, and so my number one tip is check with your employer, find out exactly, try to think about your budget each month in terms of how much are you spending on medical things. For example, maybe you have a child that goes to counseling every month and you have a copay. Maybe you have so even some of things like that can be part of your FSA or your HSA. So counseling, any kind of therapies or anything that you might have on an ongoing basis, those are all things that can be taken out of those accounts. So why would you let the government take that money and then pay it out of pocket? At least get this HSA, get this FSA, get the money in there, and then start using that, because those are pre-tax dollars. So if you don't do that, you're gonna pay 30% in taxes at least, get the money in your hands and then pay it, where you can put this before taxes into this account and you're not being taxed on that amount. So for me personally, with 3 boys who, we get cuts and scrapes and things like that all the time, and have doctor's visits, all kinds of things that we have to do on a monthly basis, contacts, all of their medical exams, their dental, all of that is covered under my FSA. So it's extremely important for our family, especially bigger families, to have an FSA and take advantage of it. So if that's something that you qualify through your employer, look into this, find out the rules, regulations, find out if it's, find out exactly what you have to keep receipts for, find out if you have to submit for reimbursement, what's the date for reimbursement. I actually make up 12 envelopes every summer to get ready for the upcoming year's FSA's reimbursement. And I already have them addressed so that it's easy for me once the school year starts. So making it as easy on yourself as possible to submit receipts for an FSA is going to be key, especially for people that are not good at, managing those tasks. Okay. So just a couple of my tips. I always like to keep these videos to 7 minutes or less. Let me know how you're doing. How did you do on this past week's, budget? This is our weekly check-in as well. So I want to keep it to like the next 45 seconds. We talked last week about, on episode number 3, about the snowball versus the interest rate method. So my question to you is, have you decided on a method? Are you doing snowball? Or are you doing interest rate? And start tackling this coming week a plan for how you're going to repay those. How are you going to create a surplus in your budget to be able to move extra money towards paying down that debt? What are all the ways that you can bring down those other expenses in your savings plan, which is your budget, to move over to pay off that debt? And so this is something that we do every week in my exclusive money saving group called Money Masters. If you would like to be part of that group, comment, message me, let me know. I will get you a link to sign up. It's $6 a month. So for less than 20 cents a day, you can join our Money Masters group and actually learn how to save money on a daily basis. And we have a weekly accountability check-in in that group. So it's totally worthwhile if you are somebody that's not really good at keeping yourself accountable with your budget and your finances. We want to see you in the Money Masters group. Okay, guys, have a great week. Money Madness, Sunday Money Madness episode 4. And we'll come back at you next Sunday night. Usually like to pop in here around 7:45 Eastern Standard Time to do my live, and then I save it as an episode on the channel. So if you don't get a chance to watch it live, you can always watch it on the playback later.